Alright, we're going to review what we know how to do with lines, and we're also going to talk about some new information about parallel lines and what intercepts are, and kind of wrap up everything you should be able to do as of now, because tomorrow could be a quiz. If I give you 2 points, you should be able to give me the equation, right? What's the first step? What's the first step on question number 1? Let me move this stuff out of the way. You got to find the slope. You need a point and a slope, basically. So if I give you 2 lines, it's kind of a tricky way to tell you slope. I'm making you, actually I'm not telling it to you, I'm making you work for it. Please be careful on this step. Tell me what I should do. So I got to subtract my y's. We could either do 4 minus negative 8 or negative 8 minus 4. What do you want to do? 4 minus negative 8. Okay, so since I started with the 4 on the bottom, then I've got to do 6 minus negative 2. I could have switched it around the other way and you would have ended up with 2 negatives. And 2 negatives overall is positive. So it doesn't matter which order you do it as long as you stay consistent. But this looks like it's turning into 4 plus 8, which is 12. 6 plus 2, which is 8. And I do like you to reduce your slope. What does 12 over 8 reduce to? Yeah, divide by 4 on top, 3 over 2. Now, please, please, please be very careful on this next step. You've got to pick your favorite point, either A or B. Which one? A has positive numbers. I would probably pick A. Please don't use parts of both, which some kids do. Maybe draw a line through the one you're not going to use. I'm done with point B. I don't need it anymore. I need point A, and I need the slope I just found, right? I'm going to plug everything I know into y equals mx plus b. So what would I put for y? 4, right? Equals m times x. Well, my m, I just figured out, was 3 over 2 times what's my x? 6 over 1 plus b. Now, what is 3 over 6 times 2 over 1? I've got to multiply the m and the x together. So what do I get when I do this times this? 18 over 2. And some kids are leaving it like 18 over 2, which technically that's okay, but what's an easier way to write 18 over 2? 9. So this is 4 equals 9 plus b, and I'm almost done finding the b. Move that 9 to the other side, subtract 9 from both sides. What's b going to equal? Negative 5. So now I know my slope, I know my b, now I can write the equation. And that would be y equals 3 over 2x plus negative 5 or just minus 5. Depends on how you want to write it. How can I know that I'm right? Yes, now that I know my equation, once I know an equation, then I can turn to my calculator to check it. So I'm going to go to y equals, put what I think the answer is into y equals. I think it's, what was it, 3 over 2x? Minus 5, is that right? And then I need to verify that both of the points I was given are there. Please don't just check one point. Sometimes kids get an answer where one point works, but the other one doesn't. They both have to work. So let's see, is negative 2, negative 8 there? Yes. Let's see, 6, 4. 6, 4 is there as well. And there's no doubt then, I did it right. That is the correct answer. So tomorrow on your quiz, I'll probably give you several questions where you are given 2 points and you got to find the equation. How do you feel about that? Okay, number 2, I kind of did one step for you. I saved you a step. What step did I save you? Yeah, I gave you the slope. But I didn't give you the... No, I gave you the m. I didn't give you the... Which is the what? The b. I didn't give you the y-intercept. So this one is just one step further along than number 1. So we just go straight to y equals mx plus b, right? That would be, what would I put for y? Y'all awake out there? Negative 6 equals negative 5 times negative 2 plus b. It's nice when it's easy whole numbers here. So negative 6 equals 10 plus b. What's my b value for this problem? Negative 16. Now I can write the equation. Y equals negative 5x minus 16. I got the right slope because I was told the slope, and hopefully I got the right y-intercept. If I want to check myself again, I go to y equals, put in my answer, negative 5x minus 16, and I'm looking for that 1 point that I was given. -2, -6. Is it there? It sure is. So that should be correct. Okay, so you're good with 1 and 2. That's what we've done for homework the last 2 days. Now, Isaiah, this is the one you asked about, number 3. And it's, did you figure it out? Okay, and I'm not picking on you, but lots of kids do lots of hard math, and then they get to something that's so easy, they're just kind of blown away. They can't believe it's so easy. What am I giving you here? I'm giving you the slope and the y-intercept. Is there any work to do? Not really, except to write the equation. Y equals what? -3x plus 4. And every once in a while I might throw you a gift like that. So I know you get at least 10 points on your quiz, right? No comment. Okay, number 4. Now, this one, there is a shortcut to this one, or you could do the math. I give you a point and a slope, and you could do the math. Did anybody realize the shortcut, though? Yeah, what kind of line is this going to be? It's completely flat. It's horizontal. It's not rising at all. It does have a slope. The slope is 0. It just doesn't have any rise. It only has run. Now, all horizontal lines are y equal just a number. We don't have to put the x in there because slope is 0, and 0 times x will cancel it out. And all you need to know is one y number. What's one of the y numbers on this line? -12. So guess what they all are? -12. So the equation of that line is y equals -12. The good thing about this kind of line is if you forget that fact, then just do the math. Y equals mx plus b. -12 equals 0 times 7 plus b, and you're going to find out that b does equal -12. The y-intercept and this y value are the same. And then some kids want to write it like this, y equals 0x minus 12. That's perfectly acceptable as well. I just want you to know that's probably not how it will be shown on a multiple choice test. If they don't have to write the 0x, they're not going to. Okay, now unfortunately, number 5, you've got to memorize this. So if you forget the deal with number 5, you can't do any work here. Because you can't plug in undefined, because it doesn't exist. This is the kind of line that doesn't have a slope. The slope is undefined. That's the one that starts out x equals. These are those outlaw lines. They're the only lines that start out x equals. These two weird things go together. And what does x equal? -9. All you need is one x value and they're all the same. X equals -9. And I probably will throw one of those in there too. You got to know that situation. All right, and then the last one, a picture. We can identify the y-intercept pretty easily, and I was hoping you'd be able to find some nice whole number points. It looks like this one right here. And I know it's kind of hard to count from where you're sitting, but let's count out this slope. First of all, what kind of slope is it? Negative. It's definitely negative because this line's going down. So we're going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and over 2. Actually, I could have done this point right here, huh? We're going down 3 and over 1, or down 6 and over 2. 6 over 2, 3 over 1, those are the same thing, aren't they? And they're both negative. Down 6 over 2 or down 3 over 1. So I know the slope from the picture, and I can also get the y-intercept from the picture. So this would be y equals -3x plus 4. And one way to check yourself on this is put it into your calculator and just kind of look at the picture that shows up on your screen. It should look somewhat like this. Hopefully that'll catch those of you who forget to put the negative sign. Okay, so if these 6 questions or one similar to them showed up on a quiz tomorrow, how do y'all feel about that? Okay, now we're going to move on to today's lesson, which isn't really anything that new. We're just going to kind of reorganize everything we know, take some notes on intercepts and parallel lines, and then we'll grade homework and you can start your homework for tonight. Okay, let's start with intercepts. Please put this in your notes because I do want you to know this. We got to know what intercepts are. We got to know how to find them. We got to know what they tell us about a line. If I tell you an intercept of a line or any kind of function, I am really telling you a point. So this is kind of a tricky way for us to give you a point. Again, telling you an intercept is just like telling you a point that's on the function. So let's talk about what an x-intercept is and what it means and how we can identify it. What is an x-intercept? Yes, it's where a function, it could be a line, it could be a parabola, it could be any kind of function, It's where a function crosses or intersects, or sometimes you'll see the word touches. All those things mean the same thing. It's where it is on the x-axis. And there's something about x-intercepts that's true for all functions. You should know one of the numbers of every x-intercept. Y equals what? 0. On every x-intercept, the y value of the point is always 0. The y value of an x-intercept is always 0. So if you're looking at a point and you notice that that function has a y value of 0, that means whatever the x number is that's paired with that 0, that is the x-intercept for that function. So what's the x-intercept of this linear function right here? 2. This x-intercept is 2. And you might just be told, hey, the x-intercept of this line is 2. Or you might be told the point that represents. What point is that? 2, 0. Every x-intercept has a y value of 0 because every point on the x-axis has a y value of 0. That's why the equation of the x-axis is y equals 0. Okay, so that seems pretty simple, but you just need to remember that, again, if I give you a point and a slope, then you can write the equation of a line. And a tricky way for me to tell you a point is to tell you what the x-intercept is. And that's what I did on the bonus on the last quiz you took. Okay, what's another kind of intercept? A y-intercept. Let's talk about what a y-intercept is and means and does. Go back. Okay, I'll just write it down here. Let's talk about what a y-intercept is. What does a y-intercept mean for a function? Yeah, in this case, it's where it crosses where the function crosses the y-axis. It could be any kind of function. We're talking specifically about lines right now, but it could be any kind of function. Lots of times this one's identified in the equation, depending on what form of the equation you have. It's where the function crosses, and again, crosses means intersects, touches, passes through. All of those things mean the same thing. Where the function crosses the y-axis. What do you know about every y-intercept that exists in the world? The x value is 0. The x value of every y-intercept is 0. And we're going to use that fact when we try to find intercepts. But today I just want you to really understand what they are and what point that tells you is on the function. So if you're looking at a point and you see the x value of that point is 0, automatically that means the y that's paired with it is the y-intercept of that function. So if I tell you a y-intercept, I'm really telling you a point. So what's the y-intercept of this linear function here? -3. Okay, this one right here, and I know my picture's not great, but this has a y-intercept of -3. It's on the y-axis at -3. What point is that? 0, -3. Okay, and we will definitely come back to intercepts because part of your job is to find the intercepts when I give you an equation. Today, I just want you to understand what they are. So, for example, again, I can give you points in a tricky way. Let's say I'm thinking of a line and it's got an x-intercept of 6. That's as good as telling you a point that's on the line. What point am I telling you? 6, 0, and you have to know that. What if I tell you I'm thinking of a line and it's got a y-intercept of 2? Then I'm telling you the point 0, 2 in a kind of a tricky way. Okay? And we're going to do some equations with that in just a minute. Okay, so that's intercepts, which I feel like you guys kind of knew that stuff, but we got to know how it's going to be applied in a math problem. You also need to know about parallel lines, which we kind of have touched on this briefly. Think about parallel lines. Do y'all remember what we noticed about parallel lines? They definitely never intersect. Absolutely. They do not touch each other. What else? They do have something in common. Their equations will have something in common. Their slope will be the same. Okay, like here's an equation that happens to be y equals 1x plus 2. Look at this line. All I'm going to do is shift that line down. Oops, my line didn't get very straight. Okay, so look at these two lines. Do you agree that they're parallel? If you forgive my picture not being perfect. They are parallel. What's the slope of this line right here? 1. What's the slope of this line? 1. Parallel lines have the same slope. A very simple fact, but it's going to come up in your problems. What's different about parallel lines? They have different y-intercepts. Okay, so keep that in mind, and let me show you how you're going to be asked to prove that you know that fact. Let's go back to our notes. Parallel lines. They have the same slope. I want you to write this in your notes. But different y-intercepts. What if they had the same y-intercept? Well, it's the same line. If they have the same slope and the same y-intercept, then they are the same line. So they have the same slope in common, but they definitely have different y-intercepts. Okay, and the whole point of those two things that I wanted to point out to you or make sure you're aware of is to show you how information can be given to you in a tricky way. Tell me the most basic thing you need to know to find the equation of a line. Slope and a point. A slope and a point, right? So let me show you what you're going to be asked to do. Can I erase this screen? Okay. I'm going to ask you to find the equation of the line described. So I'm going to either give a written description or a picture, and we're going to find the equation of the line described in the form we're used to. There's lots of different forms, but right now we're focusing on this form. What's that called? Slope-intercept form. Okay, so I am thinking of a line that has an x-intercept of -5 and is parallel to y equals 7x minus 12. Now, there is some work we've got to do. Like some kids think, oh, I'll just replace the -12 with the -5. The problem is this a y-intercept? No, this is an x-intercept. What I'm giving you here is I am giving you a point on the line that I'm thinking of, and I'm in a tricky way telling you the slope you're supposed to use. If I want to be parallel to this line, then what do I have to have in common with that line? I have to have the same slope of that line. What has to be different? The y-intercept has to be different. Yeah, are you with me? So what slope does this line have? 7. That's all I needed from that line. I know parallel lines have the same slope. If I know I've got to be parallel to that line right there, then I know my slope better also be 7. Now I'm done with that line. Some kids are like, what do we do with the -12? Nothing. Okay, all we needed from that line was the slope. Once we know the slope, we are done with that piece of information. That's a tricky way to tell you the slope to use. I also gave you a point. Anthony, question? I also gave you a point. If I told you that the x-intercept on the line you're finding is -5, then what point did I just tell you? I told you the x-intercept, not the y-intercept. So if I told you the x-intercept was -5, that means the point -5, 0 is on the line. So did I give you a point and a slope? Yes. Was it a tricky way that I gave you those pieces of information? Yes. Okay, so this is an example of how you'll be given information in tricky ways. Now I've still got to do the work. I know the slope I'm supposed to have, and I know one point that's on the line. What do I not know? I don't know the y-intercept. I know it's not negative 12 because parallel lines have the same slope but different y-intercepts. All I needed from this line was the 7. All I needed from this was to know what point that is, and now I can do the math. Y equals mx plus b. What's my m? 7. What's my y value? 0 equals 7 times negative 5 plus b. 0 equals negative 35 plus b. What does b equal? 35. So what's the equation of my line? Y equals 7x plus 35. That's the line I'm looking for. Was it parallel to this one? How can I tell it's parallel to this one? It has the same slope. Did it have different y-intercepts? Yes. What else has to be true for this? It has to have an x-intercept of negative 5. Let's make sure it does. I can tell it's got the same slope as the line I was given. What I can't tell is if I have the right point, the right x-intercept. So I'm going to put my answer into y equals 7x plus 35, and I'm going to look at the t-chart. I'm looking for the point negative 5, 0. Is it there? Yes. Okay, let's try another one. I want you to find the equation of the line I'm describing. The line I am thinking of has to be parallel to y equals negative 1/2 x minus 7, and it has to contain the point, or go through the point, 6, negative 3. So again, I'm giving you a point and a slope, but in a tricky way. So what slope are you supposed to use? Right. I know my slope has to be the same as the line I'm parallel to. That's the only thing I needed from that line. Did I need that minus 7? No. Okay, because parallel lines have different y-intercepts. So the only thing I really needed from this line was, hey, what's the slope of this line? That's the slope I'm supposed to use. And then I gave you a point. And then you got to do the math. What did y'all get for B? I did too. So what's the equation of the line I was trying to find? Y is equal to negative 1/2 x, and I could put plus 0, or I could just put y equals negative 1/2 x, which is probably how it would be written if this was a multiple choice item. Are these two lines parallel? Yes. They have the same slope, but they ended up with different y-intercepts. Now, my line should contain this point. This point's not on the line that you were started with. This point's on the line that we found, or it should be. So let's make sure it is. Y equals negative 1/2 x, and I can put plus 0, or I can just leave it alone. Y equals negative 1/2 x, and I'm looking for the point that I was given, 6, negative 3. And let's see if it's there. Is it there? Yes, 6, negative 3. Okay, here's yet another way they could do it. I am thinking of a line that is parallel to line H, Here's line H. Parallel to line H and goes through the point 3, negative 4. Contains the point 3, negative 4. So again, I'm giving you a point and a slope to use. If you have to be parallel to line H, what must you have in common with line H? You must have the same slope as line H. But did I tell you what line H's slope was or what line H's equation was? No. I gave you a picture of it. So what is the slope of line H? Down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. So I've got a slope of negative 2. And I told you a point that better be on your line. Positive 3, negative 4. Now you got to do the math. What are we trying to find here? What's missing? The y-intercept, because parallel lines have same slopes but different y-intercepts. All right, what are y'all getting for the y-intercept here? 2. So what would the equation of the line be that I was trying to describe to you? Yes, and I'm just going to graph it on here. Y equals negative 2x plus 2. Down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. Do these lines look parallel? Yes, because they have the same what? Slope. Now my line was supposed to go through the point 3, negative 4, did it? It sure did, right there, 3, negative 4. Okay, so that's pretty much the new stuff, which we already know how to find the equation of a line if we know a point and a slope, but this is just a different way to tell you about slope. Also a different way to tell you about a point. Here's one that's really easy. Let's see if you can figure this one out. I'm thinking of a line that is parallel to y equals negative 2/3 x plus 5. And the line I'm thinking of must have a y-intercept of 2. So do you have to do any math here? Not really. You just have to know what parallel lines have in common. So what equation am I thinking of? Y equals negative 2/3 x plus 2. Because parallel lines have the same slope, but they have different y-intercepts. So if I tell you the y-intercept, that makes your life really easy. All right, one last one. Back to giving you a point in a tricky way. I am thinking of a line that's parallel to line L. So you have to be parallel to L and through point Q. So I'm giving you a point and a slope completely from a picture. Two tricky pieces of information here. First of all, you have to know about parallel lines. They have the same what? Slope. Okay, so if I want you to be parallel to line L, then what slope do you need to use? You better use a slope of 2. Did I give you a point that has to be on the line? I did. I didn't tell you what the point was. I gave you a picture of it. Where is point Q? 3, 3. So I gave you a point and a slope, which is all you need to be able to give me the whole equation, but I gave it to you in tricky ways. Raise your hand when you can tell me the whole equation. Okay, good. Y'all are fast. And sometimes you can almost use the picture. I know you don't have this grid in front of you, But I'm going to draw it out on the picture and see if I can tell where it's going to cross the y-axis. Because basically what I need here is the y-intercept. I've already got the slope. I need the y-intercept. So what did y'all get? Y equals... Okay, y equals 2x minus 3. Now I'm just going to count it out. I know I have to go through point Q, and I know my slope is 2. So I'm going to go up 2 and over 1, up 2 and over 1. The problem is I need to go backwards. Instead of going up 2 over 1, what could I do? Down 2, backwards 1. That's still really a positive slope. Down 2, backwards 1, down 2, backwards 1, down 2, backwards 1. Where did I land on the y-axis? At negative 3. Whoops, that's not a very pretty line. So yeah, I know that's right because I drew it out. And I could also do the math, and that's what it would come up to be. Y equals 2x minus 3. All right, so finish the sentence. Parallel lines have the same... You can do better than that. Parallel lines have the same... But they have different y-intercepts. Okay, if I tell you a point, I can give you a picture of it, I can tell you the point, or I can tell you something like this. I'm thinking of a line that's got an x-intercept of negative 7. What point is that? So if I tell you an intercept, am I really telling you a point? Yes, I am. I'm thinking of a line that's got an x-intercept of 2. 2, 0. X-intercept of negative 2,000. Negative 2,000, 0. I'm thinking of a line that's got a y-intercept of 8. 0, 8. Okay, so if I can tell you a point in a tricky way, and I can tell you a slope in a tricky way, or I can give you a line you got to be parallel to. It's just like giving you a point and a slope. All right. Your homework is going to be more practice with just finding the equation of a line given 2 points, because that's a very critical skill. So look up page 307, because I want to make sure you know what you're doing here. We already did 1 through 15, and that's what we're about to grade. Everybody look at page 307, because I'm changing the directions. The directions are a little bit confusing. Somebody hand me their book real quick. Let me see your book, David. Unfortunately, this your booklet doesn't have a whole lot of really good problems with linear functions, so we got to modify the directions. Okay, look at 19 through 26. I am changing the directions. How many points are they giving you on 19 through 26? 3. They're asking you to find the equation of PQ and then tell them whether R is on the line or not. I'm not going to worry about that today. All I care about is the P and the Q. Do you need the point R at all? No, we're not going to worry about that. I just want you to find the equation of the line for 19 through 26 that contains points P and Q. Ignore the R. You don't need it at all. Does that make sense? Okay, so if you are given 2 points, which you are on this homework, you find the slope, then you find the y-intercept, then you write the equation, then you check it. Just like last night's homework. We're going to practice it twice because this is an important skill. Okay. Now, let's grade homework. Get your homework out.